Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1198, written by Taylorfla, The Uninvited Observers. I was watching Lost on my computer one night in college. It was the episode where Juliet is down at the bottom of a hole. I won't say more for spoilers, but watch it. I had paused the episode at some point after she fell down the hole, because I had to go to bed. I turned off my computer monitor and went to sleep. 3 in the morning, I'm woken up by the sounds of coughing and wheezing. I start freaking out because it's so loud and directly inside of my room. I turn on the lights and realize it's just one episode of Lost unpausing itself, and Juliet is down in that hole making dying noises. I turn off my computer, reassured that technology is just a jerk. I go back to sleep. Then the weird moment happens. I get back into bed. Not a minute goes by before I hear 2 voices. The first says, "Do you like the room?" The second voice only says, "Yes." My eyes pop open and I feel like they're going to escape my head. The sound I have no explanation for. I jump out of bed and go to my computer to make sure it's turned off. It is. I had roommates at the time, so I think maybe it's a prank, and I search my entire room for one of them. Nothing. I give up and go back to bed, but basically keep my eyes open for the rest of the night, waiting for another voice. I still have no idea what happened that night. Any theories would be fantastic. Case notes for file 1198, The Uninvited Observers. I've had that happen a few times where my computer has a YouTube or Netflix video paused, while I sat down for a 30-minute nap that somehow morphed into a 5-hour nap. Does it even qualify as a nap at that point? I don't know. Woken up to the video somehow playing. Probably a computer glitch, nothing to do with a supernatural anomaly, but still odd, right? As for the voices heard though, perhaps people in a parallel world, in the exact same physical location, looking to rent a room in that house. Or hell, maybe spirits trying to find a new place to call home too. Casper the real estate agent? Probably the former though, I'd guess. Just a parallel world crossover, but not fully crossover, just a sound. Because you didn't even see anyone. Although maybe you would have seen them if you weren't sleeping, so maybe it was more of a full crossover, but still, it's like seeing through glass. The barrier is still there, but you can just see across it. I don't know why it's thin in some places, and only at some times, because it doesn't happen again, usually in the same place. Unlike lightning, which really does strike in the same place multiple times, it's more likely to strike in the same place, so I don't know where that folk legend came from. Case file number 1199, written by USSC, The Logic-Defying Car. I feel like I'm a little late to the game, but I'll share my experience anyways. Last summer, a friend and I were coming back from a weekend trip and were traveling along a country highway. This was around 1 or 2 in the morning, and you almost never see a car, but we were slowly catching up to a black car. Now this guy was going at a good clip, so we were ecstatic to follow him. 20 minutes later, we were still behind him and just passing through a small town. We get to the other side of town and get held up at a red light. Light turns green and the guy gets up to speed. Fast. My buddy isn't willing to go as fast as this guy is going. He was going maybe 130 kilometers in a 90. Anyways, the guy is maybe 200 feet ahead of us and his taillights just vanish, as if he's gone over a hill or off the road. We knew this stretch of the highway where there were no turns, no hills, and no side roads. My friend and I were curious, so we tried to catch up. He maxed his car out and we were going 170 for a good few minutes. We never caught him and could see for a long distance there were no lights. Freaked us both out, and we concluded that the car had vanished. Case notes of file 1199, The Logic-Defying Car. Can't be too late to share your experiences, honestly. I doubt we'll get a conclusive answer to all of them even after centuries of reading about them. Some will be solved, new ones will pop up. It seems to be the standard ebb and flow of the universe, keeps us on our toes. We can't fully solve it. And what you witnessed was likely a space-time rip. So the car crosses it, the portal collapses, so you travel through to the same space it occupied, but the portal isn't there anymore. The first one, took it, and then it just closes itself. Then the car vanished from your perspective, but was teleported far away. I'm surprised there aren't more accounts of drivers seeing other cars vanish from thin air, though, because there's so many accounts from the first-person perspective of it happening to a driver or the passenger, but rarely seen from outside. Does that mean that these are tailor-made and placed in specific locations as tests? Maybe it doesn't really strike me as happenstance, random, because again, I keep talking about it, but where the portal leads you to, it's not inside the Earth or in space or anything like that, and it's usually pretty close to where the portal spawned from, so it does seem more like some kind of test, maybe even just military testing, because it's usually in remote places or where other people aren't seeing it, and again, it's just so specific in where it places you. People would be dying. Maybe it is true that maybe people go missing, so that maybe that's true. Maybe it is random and people are just going missing from these random portals. They just, one moment they're driving and the next moment they're in deep space and, can't survive that. So maybe missing 411 is related to that, in part. But my gut still says that it's deliberately placed, is what I would guess.
Case file number 1200, written by Anonymous. Unraveling the Premonition puzzle. When I was about 14, I was driving back home from a show with some friends. It was pretty late at night, and not only do I live pretty far in the middle of nowhere, but I had the house to myself that night. My mom was with her boyfriend. Naturally, the smartest thing to do is to get on the subject of ghost stories. We go back and forth a bit, swapping stories, when all of a sudden, a really strange feeling washes over me, and I have a premonition of finding this old picture of me and my recently deceased grandmother. I had been feeling very guilty at that time for not spending enough time with my grandparents. It was an old photo of me and her, when I was probably about 9, with bleached blonde hair at one of my soccer games. I hadn't seen it in years and years, but somehow, I just had a feeling that I was going to find it. It was a very strange feeling that I couldn't shake for the rest of the night. The next morning I wake up and my mom tells me that before I go out and do anything for the day, I'll have to tidy up my messy room. I'm shoving miscellaneous items in this compartment I have in my dresser in my room. It's an open compartment with a horizontal divider that slips in, dividing the space in half. I'm digging around in the compartment, which I hardly use in the first place, when I see a red paper folder pressed up against the back of the compartment, lodged in there by the divider. I see it, and somehow I already knew immediately what I'm going to find inside. I open it up, and sure enough, the only thing in that folder was the exact picture I had the premonition about the night before. Not exactly creepy, but to me it was proof that there are forces at play in the universe that we just don't yet understand.
Case notes for file 1200. Unraveling the Premonition puzzle. The only natural thing to do around a campfire or indoors at night with friends is to discuss ghost stories. It sets a perfect atmospheric vibe, that eerie but most wondrous or mysterious feeling. I just love it. I was like that intro scene from Goosebumps, or was it Are You Afraid of the Dark, where they're around a campfire telling stories. It's great. So indeed, forces at play in the universe that we don't yet understand. That's a perfect summary. I think they can be understood, we just don't have enough data, and it's hard to test them scientifically. And these days, I think we have a somewhat solid grasp, but reaching that point where it's so fully understood, like something else you can physically test by repeating the same thing and seeing the results. I mean, in this case, it's just not testable. But at a point where if you get a premonition, an intense feeling of finding something so specific and nostalgic, it wouldn't shock me at all. If it happened to me, I'd consider it just like another Tuesday, even if it never happened to me before. I've just read so many stories about it. It seems normal now, right? After reading thousands of stories, sometimes I feel like a scholar of ancient times poring over old tomes of arcane knowledge, and now I just have this grasp of things, we do now. Because you're here listening to it all, so you have the same basic understanding. And even though these things are rare, and a lot of people go through their life never experiencing a glitch, or at least not one that's sufficient enough to even really notice. If it does happen to you, at least you'll be prepared. So that's good.
Case file number 1201, written by Aristotle's Ball Collection. The Darkened Deck Anomaly. So this just happened to me and my two friends earlier tonight. Basically, I have a back deck with French doors that open up directly into my lounge room, and when you sit outside on the deck, the light from the lamp in the lounge room shines out into the deck, partially illuminating it. When it's turned on, of course. When we go out into the deck to smoke, just before doing so, make it a point to turn off the lamp so we can enjoy the atmosphere of smoking in the dark. Once outside, one of my mates turns on the flashlight on his phone. This is important later, so we can get settled, sort out seats, etc. So we spark it up, engage in conversation, and a considerable amount of time passes until I notice the lamp from inside shining on my friend's face, but not in a way that it suddenly turned on and I noticed, more that it had been on the entire time and I only noticed afterwards. I pause mid-conversation and ask the other two if that light had been on the whole time. They stop and look at me before one of them says that it has, and we didn't turn it off when we came outside, which seems fine, till I remember the flashlight we turned on in order to see because it was pitch freaking black. We begin to analyze the situation, and all recall vivid memories of only seeing the amber of the substance we were smoking and never being able to make out each other's faces in the darkness. We also can't recall which of us turned off the lamp when we made a point of doing so earlier, but none of us actually noticed it turning on the whole time. It was only until I pointed it out that we realized none of it adds up. What the hell happened? Also, none of my family were at home at the time. It was just us.
Case notes of file 1201, the Darkened deck Anomaly. So I like how you describe that event as not happening, but like your brain realized it had already happened. The light was on and had been. You didn't notice it until your brain turned on the memory. Is this evidence again of alien abduction? There's an element in people's memories, as they try to recall them, even in real time, just after being abducted, where that element doesn't fit. A weird anomaly in the stars, the moon, the trees and animal, sounds, smells, or in this case, a light. Though you don't mention any time loss, so maybe it was just pure memory alteration, but what would do that? Could a spirit do that, and what for? Is it just an actual glitch in the brain? Because it does seem like your group initially thought, this light was always on, and then they thought about it like the light from your phone, like why would we have that on if the light from the inside was on too? So it does seem odd, and I don't really have an explanation for this. With no time loss, I don't think it's aliens. Pure glitch, I'm not sure. And now time for the quote of the day. I love being married. It's so great to find that one special person you want to annoy the rest of your life. Rita Rudner. When I do find a wife, I will be sure to play many pranks on her. Not annoy to the point of psychosis, because that's going too far. Just enough to have fun. It's so important to have fun, and I am a prankster. That is my spirit animal, is a prankster. I don't think that's an animal, but we'll go with that. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.